Okay. Well, hello and welcome to the first meeting for the Washington 500 Continuum of Care of 2025. I'm Ruby Tuesday Romero, and I'm one half of the co-chair, or I'm one half of a chair, excuse me, my apologies. Which half, I don't know, but today is January 8th, 2024, and the time is 2:01, and I call this meeting to order. I just wanted to start out with the reminder that we do have a cart captioner that's here. So when you're speaking, try to talk slowly, which I know I need to work on. And to remember to identify yourself at the beginning of your speaking to make it easy on them. And yeah, so I would like to move into the land acknowledgement, which I believe we had Amaya down for to read the land acknowledgement.
My name is Amaya Lenore, and I will be giving the land acknowledgement. The King County Continuum of Care Board acknowledges that we work on the unceded traditional lands of the Coast Salish peoples, especially the First Peoples of Seattle, the Duwamish people, the original stewards of the land, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. This acknowledgement only becomes meaningful when combined with accountable relationships and informed action, and is the first step in honoring the land that we today sit on and their peoples.
Thank you for that. I believe we have Tamra to do the theory of change.
Sure will. Hello. The theory of change is that if we create a homeless response system that centers the voices of people with lived and living experience of homelessness, then we can focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequities to end homelessness for all.
Thanks, Tamra. And we're going to go right into roll call. So I usually would say Alex, but I think of it Catherine then.
You guys are muted.
We know. Sorry about that. Patricia Sam.
Present.
Tamara Bauman.
Here.
Jaja Floyd.
Present.
Bella Irons.
Here.
Amaya Lenore.
Present.
Elizabeth Mopin.
Present.
Dorsal Plants.
Here.
Ruby Romero.
Here.
Martha Sasarosi.
Here.
Christina Sawicki.
Christina is present.
Thank you. Victor Liu.
Here.
Amy Thomas. Amy Thomas. TT White. TT White. We have 11 members present and 2 absent.
Awesome, thank you. Before moving into the public comment portion, I think this would be in order to entertain a motion to adjust the agenda because we don't have the minutes just currently available to us in time to be able to review them. So we need to move that to next month if anybody's willing to entertain that motion.
I'm so moved, Ruby. This is Jaja Floyd.
Do I hear a second? To
Second.
amend. Thank you.
This is Martha.
Thanks, Martha. Appreciate that. We'll just do a simple voice vote. All in favor of moving the agenda or of editing the agenda to move the minutes review to next month, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any abstentions? Okay, thank you. It sounds like the ayes have it. And I believe that would move us into the public comment portion, right? I'm sorry, my computer's acting a little funny today, so I'm not sure if that's the next step on the agenda, but I believe it is. The public comment portion is going to begin now. If you are here to make a public comment, please raise your hand and we will call on you in the order that we receive the hand. And we are always accepting public comment via the email, coc.questions@kcrha.org. And then also we have the parking lot, which I wanted to remind people that if we do have that question on the parking lot, you can find that in the meeting materials usually. Do we have any hands?
I am not seeing any hands raised, and I will be monitoring the Q&A throughout the meeting.
Awesome. I'll ask a couple more times. Is there anyone here for public comment? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, thank you. Great. So the next thing I think we're moving up to is the committee updates. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So we'll move into the committee updates. So the System Performance Committee is going to be having we have a couple new co-chairs at the System Performance Committee. And so I'll definitely turn it over to the co-chair here in just a second, unless, would you like me to give the update or would you like to give an update, Bella?
I can give an update. Thank you for asking. So thank you to everybody who is part of the Systems Performance Committee. I have met with the other co-chair, Marvin, and our KCRHA liaison, Daniel, and we have a review of 2024 that we are putting together to help inform planning for 2025, making sure that any outlying goals or issues are addressed. And we'll have that be able to be presented in February. And we had a couple of items to get updated on, since I am new to not just the COC, but the SPC as a co-chair. So I'm trying to get caught up. Marvin's very well versed, as well as Daniel. But we have a couple of different items that we are going to present and look to see for membership to engage or move forward in different ways, such as surveys. And we look forward to the upcoming convening. So that is where we are right now. Still very much under works.
Yeah. Thanks for giving that quick update. I think I would also just add that at our last meeting, which was December 11th, we went over like a bare bones 2025 work plan. We also, or not a bare bones, I'm sorry, the like template one that we, with the requirements that we need to focus on yearly is what I meant by that. And we also did a review of the questionnaire that was sent out to the users of the HMIS system. There wasn't like a robust turnout on that, but we did get some information about how people are using the live inventory and also the HMIS system as a whole. So that was really interesting and robust. And we got that from the Get Focused crew. And then also the last thing I'd say is we just have a meeting next Wednesday, I believe. It's going to be 2 to 4 p.m.
Yes, those. Thank you for those more specific Systems Performance Committee agenda items from 2024. They are in discussion right now about that wrap up in 2024 and what was accomplished. And you are correct. This next Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m. on, what is it, January 15th, we have our January meeting. And that is where we will have the 2024 review and some of the goals and what we're looking at as outlining within the first months of this year as work.
Great. And then Tamara, do you have any updates for your metrics? Or Daniel, did you have something to say? I just saw him come off mute, sorry. No? Okay. Go ahead, Tamara. Sorry about that.
I don't have any updates yet. Just know that something is going to be in the works in the next, like, hopefully within the month, we'll be starting to really plan and organize for doing targeted outreach and targeted, like, listening sessions with folks who have lived and living experience of homelessness, and service providers also that have lived and living experience of homelessness. My goal is to tap into their wisdom and knowledge to inform policy and to help change the culture and narrative around homelessness, in at least here in King County and hopefully beyond.
Great. Thank you so much for that update. I believe we also have the YAB, if the YAB wants to give an update on anything they're working on. Like they're
For
planning for the
captioning reasons, my name is Amaya. Right now for the YAB, we are focusing really hard on our Q1 and Q2 HUD requirements that we were discussing at our in-person meeting. So the YAB is responsible for helping allocate YHDP funding, which is Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project funding. We are also focusing really hard on reallocating funding that was originally designated for the Home of Hope. So because we as the YAB are representatives basically for every young adult that gets services from the HUD funding, we are going out into the community, going to drop-in centers such as the Auburn YMCA. We're going to youth care facilities that are funded by HUD and the YHDP, and we are asking these young adults what they need and what they would like to see this funding go towards. Like I said, we are representatives. We want these young people to know that we are here and that they can get in contact with us. We want to really be involved with our community and not only have our own opinions, but also collect the opinions of people that are currently accessing the resources that we are funding or that are needing funding. So that's mainly what we're focusing on. We're also focusing on planning our convening, which is also a HUD requirement. And we are starting to really flesh that out. Yeah.
Yay. Another YAB convening. I'm looking forward to that. That was a lot of fun. Great. So I think the only other, or the coordinated entry, I'm so sorry. Is there anyone that has a coordinated entry update today? Or wants to give some information on the next meeting? Anybody that's on that committee? We can come back to the coordinate. Oh,
I am.
there you go.
This is Jaja Ruby. Okay.
Jaja, you
Thank you,
go for
Kelby.
it.
Well, I was just gonna say that at our last continuum of coordinated entry meeting, we didn't make quorum, and so therefore we had to reschedule to this month. So that's what's going on. So we're still underway doing the good work, and hopefully anyone who is on that committee, just a reminder to please show up so we can get the work done. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
December
don't
is
know
a hard month.
when that meeting is. Do you, Kelsey, know when our next meeting is?
Not off the top of my head.
This is Patricia, Sam, COC board member. Thank you, Jaja, for that reminder. It looks like the calendar, it's the 23rd of this month on a Thursday. Is it 10 a.m. to or 10:30 a.m. to 12? Want to confirm that that's the correct info I have.
Thank you. Thank you guys for giving that update. And yeah, December is a tough month, so I understand that. And I hope everybody did. Go ahead.
Excuse me, and also to add that Tom sent out an email with a worksheet for us, those that are on the coordinated entry work group, to look over and be prepared to discuss.
Awesome. Great. And again, to find these meeting links and all the information for the public meetings that are going to be on the KCRHA.org, but it's going to be the Continuum of Care page. And then when you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the System Performance Committee coordinated entry links. And then on those pages, you'll find all that info. Thank you guys, appreciate that. So the cross-cutting policy work group is also trudging along, and we have our next meeting at the end of January. And we are really digging into some new potential rapid rehousing standards and trying to look at those and get a recommendation together for the board to be able to make a educated vote on these new standards that are going to be done for the rapid rehousing program here in King County. And so I'm really looking forward to kind of putting our nose to the grindstone and really getting to work on some policy and, you know, in conjunction with the KCRHA. So looking forward to doing that, and can't wait to bring it to the board to present as the first thing that the cross-cutting policy work group will be bringing to the COC board. So that's exciting. Then I think we're going to do a bit of a informational update when it comes to a new work group that we're potentially going to stand up. Granted, the board wants to do such at the next meeting. We plan to be voting on that. But we just wanted to kind of discuss that today. Catherine, did you want to start the conversation on this one, or Victor maybe?
That Victor is going to, as the board liaison.
All right, thank you. Victor, take it away.
Happy New Year, everyone. So my name is Victor Luz. For this work context, I use he, him pronouns. I'm one of the COC board member as well. So I was the liaison for the previous charter work group. For continuity, I'm glad to mention that I will continue my role as a liaison. So essentially, I will be the person that will be communicating with the charter revision work group members. And there will be an application process and recruitment process. So stay tuned for that. Yeah. So very brief, but stay tuned for more information about the application and recruitment process. And again, we'll be partnering with Susan Tanner from CSH as well.
Yeah, and this is the full document review, correct? We're looking at the whole thing this time.
Yeah, so it's going to be pretty, I hate to use the word intense, but it will be more intensive because we'll be looking at the full review. And then as a whole, so again, look out for more information for the recruitment and application process. There are very specific requirements of how many members will be selected and the category that we are looking at as well.
I see a couple hands up, and I'm so sorry. I don't know who put their hand up first, but I got Martha and Elizabeth both.
Elizabeth had her hand up first.
I was first. Okay, I was wondering, I've been trying to attend the cross-cutting policy work group, but I've not been able to get a link for that. Is there some problem there? And is there some way of attending some of these meetings, even just for informational purposes?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. So with the cross-cutting policy work group, I know that, you know, there's potential to be ramping up to more meetings or to a public meeting. I'm not quite sure what that looks like in 2025 yet, but I do hear that you're having issues accessing the link. And so I was just curious, maybe if I thought maybe you still haven't received it.
Correct.
Like as of right now. Okay, cool. Well, we will definitely square that away and get that to you by the 27th for sure.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, I sent you the meeting invite. And then in the email, I did ask if you could let me know if you received that. So it should be a meeting invite coming from me.
So look out for an email from Catherine and we can continue and circle offline if you're not able to keep accessing it.
It is difficult with this particular email system to tell which emails have been read and which have not.
It is. It really is with the update of how
I will keep trying, but I have gotten invites to other meetings, but I did not, as far as I could tell, receive that one. I will look again.
And I'll follow up.
And I have applied a number of times.
You're in the group, it's okay.
Thank you.
We'll make sure we get you that link. Yeah. And then Martha, you had your hand up too.
Thank you. Yes, I have a question about the rapid rehousing guidelines. And if, just so a point of clarification, if that is updates to the guidelines across fund sources. And so then it'll also factor in ESG and CHG requirements and others. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that's Kelsey.
yes, as the one kind of have been working and leading on some of that. So we'll have all of kind of the background of it. These are really updates to existing guidelines. So we'll outline what is being updated to be really explicit about what those are. So before we ask for any voting from all of you, we will ensure that it's very clear about what and make sure materials are on the way. These have been in the process for about 2.5 years from getting a lot of input and recommendation and review. So hoping to finally put a little bow tie on that. A bow tie.
Thanks. I just wanted to flag that we did have a question in the chat, and I think it was answered by Kelsey, but I just wanted to highlight that we were asked if the rapid rehousing policies will be released in a draft form for the programs to provide input. And I believe that that is going to happen, correct, Kelsey?
Yep, we were collecting information and draft response from providers in late 24 through late 23 through 24. So this has been a long process to ensure that we are getting a lot of community input. We also took input from 5-year plan engagement sessions. So this is the culmination of quite a bit of time and work and engagement.
And it would still be available before we were voting on it at a meeting, correct? Sorry, I have a lot of questions. My God.
We'll do a whole background on it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's what I thought. I knew you would. Awesome. Okay. Is there any other questions for any other work groups?
This is Jaja Floyd. Martha, you said CSG. What does that stand for?
Yes, I mentioned ESG for the Emergency Solutions Grant, and then CHG, which is the Consolidated Homeless Grant. And so the county has ESG funds from both received through the state and then directly from the federal government that pass through us to KCRHA for rapid rehousing. And then we have this Consolidated Homeless Grant, a portion of which has funding for rapid rehousing that comes from the state, passes through the county to KCRHA for several rapid rehousing programs. And those CHG funds have roughly annual updates to them. And there's just a 2024 update that's going into place. And so I just want to make sure across like all these fund sources that we're excuse me, tracking all the changes, because it really comes into play, particularly for the COC with our ability to meet match requirements for rapid rehousing, in addition to just ensuring consistency across programs, regardless of fund source.
Thank you for uplifting that consistency piece. Thanks. Is there any other questions or discussion on this? I know that there's
not specifically on this, but because funding and grants has come up, I've been looking at the budgets, and I noticed that the ones that we came to the COC and the implementation board and the governing board were different versions, and that the latest one to the governing board, that would be on page 8 of the governing board packet, only shows $23,078,819 coming from HUD. Where is the rest of the HUD money? And is there any way that we could get a breakdown of the total HUD funding that our community receives, showing the sources and where it's going?
Yep, so on the priority list, which is on our website, is all of the programs. So what's listed on the KCRHA budget is the COC funds that go directly to KCRHA. There are still COC programs that are funded and go directly to other recipients. King County holds the PSH, or Permanent Supportive Housing grants, and we have, I want to say, 4 or 5 providers who receive direct grants from HUD. So those are not included in a KCRHA pass-through budget. So that's why the total that we see on the KCRHA budget doesn't match the overall COC HUD budget. The overall budget is shared between multiple direct recipients, one of which is KCRHA. And that's the piece of the COC dollars that KCRHA sees that moves through our organization.
So for example, some of the funds would go to King County and show as King County contributions, but not as HUD contributions.
They they don't come to the contributions from HUD that go to King County do not come to KCRHA. So they're not included on the KCRHA budget at all. So that's why the HUD amount is smaller than the overall HUD. KCRHA is the collaborative applicant. So we put the application in on behalf of all applicants in King County for HUD dollars. We may be the direct recipient for some, but another direct recipient is King County. DESC receives a direct HUD grant. Friends of Youth has a direct HUD grant. Archdiocese Housing Authority receives a direct HUD grant. Youth Care receives a direct HUD grant. So the grants that those organizations receive directly from HUD is not included in the KCRHA budget, as none of those dollars come to or flow through KCRHA. And we'll can also discuss that more in the budget presentation at later on in the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also just wanted to highlight on HUD's website, they do have like a downloadable version of all the funding that goes through the COC, Washington 500, or any COC really. But that gives that full breakdown if you wanted to. I can send that to you later offline.
Thank you.
But great questions. Thank you. Is there any hands up? Yes. Oh, Kelsey, your hand's up. If you still have something to speak.
That was an error about the budget. I'll lower it.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. All right. Is there any other further discussion before we move into the break, I believe? Oh, I'm sorry, Zaja, go ahead.
This is Jaja Floyd. I just wanted to say, when we get to the point with the budget, I had a question about the other 40 million that I just wanted to know the total funded from HUD for the COC, right? And in the governance board meeting, I heard Tiffany's point to that 40 million was for PSH. Kelsey, does PSH come through KCRHA?
COC, Continuum of Care dollars for PSH do not go to KCRHA. Those are overseen by King County.
Thank you so very much.
Okay. All right. So speaking of governing board, I guess we should.
I'm sorry,
Dorsal.
This is Tamara.
Oh, sorry, Tamara.
Oh, no worries. This is Tamara. I was just curious though, now that, you know, it seems like we should probably be also coordinating with those direct grantees to consolidate power. Well, not to consolidate power, to consolidate resources and to like strengthen the homeless response system. Because I think that that's kind of a beautiful learning here, is that we should be bringing these entities into this conversation and modeling for the rest of the community and for the rest of like the country, really, what collaboration and mutual respect and understanding actually looks like in practice, not just in theory and like talking about it. We walk the walk and talk the talk. So co-chairs, let's maybe schedule some outreach meetings with those folks and have build a movement.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's great. And I can tell you, I think Devin and Dorsal are both very committed to doing just that, building community around this system as a whole. So Dorsal, did you want to talk to the visit that we had with the governing board? If you're available.
If there's an interest from the board here, I could provide an update. Yeah.
All those is there interest in hearing about our visit to the governing board?
I would like to hear this is our Flory.
This is Tamara. I second that.
I third that.
All right.
So at this point, I don't even know what I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to make comments.
Oh yeah.
So
I totally put you on the spot.
December 18th, I think, was the date that we visited the governing board, and the recording would be available online. Dr. Kennison was gracious enough to share time out of her own time on the agenda. So I definitely want to acknowledge that piece, that while the governing board was excited to have us there, it was Dr. Kennison that managed to help get us at the table. And so I appreciate that collaboration with her. And not to spoil the ending, but it sounds like we'll be returning in February to have further conversation. It was a very interesting meeting, and I encourage everyone on the COC board to watch it themselves rather than listen to my opinion of how it went, but I think that it went really well. There was definitely some interest from the governing board in trying to find ways to better collaborate and partner with the COC board and create that deep collaboration that I think Tamara was just talking about. And so a significant amount of our work, I think, this year will be connecting with the governing board and the other elected officials here in the King County area to really just help center the voices of lived experience at the table, but also I think to remind them that our lived experience is not the sole defining identity for us. We're providers, we're funders, we're parents, we're voters. And we have a stake in this that is very deep and a wealth of knowledge that, frankly, only people like us can provide. So, Ruby, do you have anything you'd like to add? You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was basically my update as well. And just, I think it was the 19th of December, but that's not really neither here nor there, just for clarification purposes. I just wanted to also share with the board that we did get asked to provide input on the budget for the KCRHA that they were discussing at their last meeting. And I just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up on that because we're going to be getting a budget presentation today. And so if we do have any feedback, that we can make sure that that does get to where it needs to go. But that with a caveat of this is mostly a pass-through budget that's been kind of decided. Like we decided our COC funding a while ago, right? And kind of, or we did the priority listing for our COC funding. And so just holding that in observance, like there's not a lot of changes that can be made because this was done in council or in another space. But what we can do is be prepared to give a statement for next year when we're actually engaged with the discussion surrounding the budget, hopefully. Because that's the direction I would like to move. And so that's kind of why we're seeing a budget presentation on today's agenda, is to make sure that we are being given the chance to give a recommendation to the governing board on their budget. But again, this is with a caveat of nothing could potentially be changed. It's very much a pass-through budget is what I heard. So, but it's very exciting that they're willing to engage with us on that. That's the only addition that I would have. So are there any questions on that? Not hearing any. Thanks for letting me and Dorsal kind of give a good quick update on that portion as well. We're running pretty much on time. Is Daniel is here, correct? And Leah and Hannah? Do you guys want to go ahead and get started on the Coordinated Entry Violence Against Women Act presentation?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm Daniel Ramos, he, him, Data Asset Manager for KCRHA on the Community Impact Team. I'm joined here with Hannah Whitworth from the Coalition for Ending Gender-Based Violence. And we're going to be giving a presentation on our DV Coordinated Entry System configuration as it relates to HMIS, and give you some background on that, some process information on kind of why we've been talking about this with y'all, and then share with you where we're headed and the recommendation. And what we're hoping for today is for this group to learn about this topic, and then in February would like to get your vote of approval to move forward with the configuration that we're outlining here today. With that, I don't think I touched base with anyone on who's going to be doing the slide deck. Is that you, Kelsey?
Got them, and I can present your slides.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yep.
And then I'll hand it over to Hannah in the meantime to do a proof intro.
Thanks, Daniel. Yes, Hannah Whitworth, she, her pronouns. I'm with the Coalition Ending Gender-Based Violence as the Domestic Violence Housing Systems Manager. So I manage and coordinate between the housing providers and folks submitting assessments with the DV CHAP, which is Domestic Violence Coordinated Housing Access Point. Thank you.
Daniel, if you're speaking, you may be on mute.
Can everyone hear me okay? I'm on earbuds. Yeah, okay, great. So yeah, this is the agenda of the presentation. It's rather short, it's 5 slides, but I'm going to talk about the background, the process, changes in the configuration. I'll talk in detail about that, and then our recommendation and next steps. And if we could go to the next slide, we'll get started. We'll get started right into the details.
And Daniel, just to note that your audio is quite choppy. It's pretty hard to hear you clearly.
How about now?
Better.
Same? Better? If I have to, I can switch to a different set of earbuds.
It's okay.
Yeah, that sounds better now, I think.
A little bit
We'll
better.
keep you updated.
Oh yeah, keep me updated. So the background here, if we go to the next slide, I'm actually going to just jump right into the process here and give you some details. So we were awarded at KCRHA the Coordinated Entry, a grant through COC funding to design and implement coordinated entry for domestic violence survivors. And that process required us to work with the coalition to identify like where we are, like how do we normally do, what is normally done right now to get folks who are fleeing from domestic violence and stalking, dating violence, human trafficking. How do we get that? How do they currently get through the system? What is that pathway to an intervention? And what I identified purely on an HMIS basis is that we weren't able to run an annual performance report, which is required by that funding. So as we kind of as I further engage in that work with Kelsey and others, what we identified is that we needed to actually evaluate what we currently do and then design something so that we can move it over into the homeless management information system And so that we could do those activities digitally in that information system. And then part of that process, we had to analyze, like, what does that look like in the HMIS? What are providers going to be doing? What kind of referrals, enrollments? What is all that going to look like? So we did that work, and then we finalized that by looking at what is the best recommendation that we can give on the community impact team to execute that work in the HMIS, which involves not just building out and configuring the system, but really Hannah is here because it required understanding what the coalition needed to do that work, and how do we wrap the technology around them so that they can do that within the HMIS safely, securely, and efficiently. And then you are all here today because you're part of the governing body that we want to seek your approval and support from, so that we can move forward in alignment with the board, our committees, and the coalition. Next slide, please. I'm gonna hand this one over to.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, Daniel.
Let's go.
Too quick. So just comparing what DVCHAP is. So it is that parallel system to King County's coordinated entry system. It varies in all of these ways, but just wanted to highlight where we are. So currently we use Dropbox, and actually the DV Hope line uses a Microsoft SharePoint. So we have those two systems that are outside of HMIS, and that's how advocates work with survivors to submit assessments to be considered for prioritization and receive those DV housing resources. So we will be moving, the plan is to move into HMIS within our own branch. And so that'll just be an updated system to streamline that process of gathering the assessments, creating that one portal of access for all agencies involved in DVCHAP, and yeah, having it all in one place so it's more succinct.
Really quick, what does DVCHAP stand for? Just for clarification.
Yep, I'll put it in the chat too, but it's Domestic Violence Coordinated Housing Access Point. And I think, Daniel, you are still on mute, by the way, if you want to go to the next slide, but I do see some hands. I think our plan was to get through the presentation and then take questions at the end, but you can correct me there, Daniel.
That's right. Sorry, multiple screens. Yeah, that's right. We'll take questions at the end because we really want to get through the content of this. And I just want to highlight here, what we're talking about is we have a mainstream coordinated entry system that all populations, all regions access, get matched with interventions. A lot more to that than that. I just distilled it down. What we're talking about here is we have a parallel coordinated entry system for survivors of domestic violence, and we're trying to configure and get that into the HMIS. Next slide, please. So this outlines a lot of text on this slide, but really this outlines what we identify as problematic with the state of the current system, and some concerns about how that was being done. So a lot of the work, all of that good work was being done. It's just being done outside of a secured HMIS system. And for this particular group, that was really our focus, is how do we do this in a way that streamlines the work of matching, intervention matching, and then honors the principles of the coalition for safety and protection of these households while we move that over into the HMIS. And you can see here, this is kind of the list of concerns that we identified. So that lack of integration with HMIS, that wasn't happening. We have to do a federal report out of the HMIS. We're not able to do that if those activities are not being recorded in that system of record in the homeless management information system. And then ultimately, yeah, we're beholden to turning in those federal reports for the funding that we receive. Next slide, please. So to get here, we had to engage with a lot of different stakeholders. So just giving you the landscape of everyone that's been involved for the last 12 months. That's us at KCRHA. Big thanks to the coalition, Hannah, Leah, and their work. Victim service providers, I'll be giving a list of that here in just a second. We had to engage our vendor.
Daniel.
Yep.
Daniel, sorry to interrupt. It's just the captioner mentioned your audio, and I'm hearing it. I'm having a hard time understanding you.
Okay, let me switch my audio. See if this helps.
Yes.
How's that? How's that?
That's better for me. Nor, does that work?
I don't think so. I have a feeling it's not actually coming through your earbuds.
No. Okay, let me check that.
It's still glitching.
Are we talking about captioning that's not working, or audio? Just so I know what I'm troubleshooting.
It's your audio, your microphone.
Testing. My mic is coming through my earbuds. It's showing on Zoom that it's working properly.
This is Jaja Floyd. I can hear him very clearly.
Let's see if I can turn it up manually. Does that help in any way? Is that too much?
There's some background issues. There's like thumping I'm hearing, and words are getting cut off, and there's glitching. So it may be just your connection in total that's not good.
Okay, I'm wondering, because if others can hear me clearly and some can't, I'm wondering if it's like a multifaceted issue.
I'm definitely hearing what everyone else is hearing.
I'm confused by that.
It's cleared up
This is
for
a
me.
it's a cart captioner that we're working with here that's just trying to make sure that we're getting the correct words that are put onto the captioning, just for the record.
Apologies. Is this a captioning issue or an audio issue?
Both.
It's an audio issue because your audio is not good.
Even with switching.
Sometimes you're clear, sometimes it's still glitching, sometimes there's still the thumping noise. So I'm definitely not hearing anything differently than anyone else's.
This is Patricia. On my end, I'm hearing okay.
And this is Dorsal. I was hearing it before, but I'm not hearing it now. When you switched audio, it fixed it for me.
Here's what I'd like to do. I don't want to scrap the presentation. I'll continue on. If I'm not misinformed, we're recording. And then I can follow up individually with folks who may have missed something. And we can certainly get you the details that you need so that you're understanding what we're doing. And then I'm gonna say, unfortunately for today, those of you that are experiencing audio issues, it's gonna be hard to diagnose in the moment. And I wanna honor the time that people have here for the next 10 minutes to get through this. And then we will make sure, I'll circle back with Kelsey and others and Hannah and make sure that you have what you need. And if you're just not understanding or hearing anything at all, please write that down and send an email right away afterwards so that we can get that addressed very quickly.
Daniel, sorry, Dorsal, one more time. I'm noticing, I don't want to call out any names, but could everyone mute that is not speaking? So that's Daniel. It looks like we've got everyone now muted.
Yes, I will provide it. I'm looking at the chat. I'll provide everyone the information. I'll maybe even speak a little bit more slowly, and I'll try to articulate and enunciate a little bit more clearly and see if that helps. So who is involved in this? So for those that were having audio issues, just quick recap, coordinated entry DV system has been in operation since 2014 or so and has been evolving. We're at a point now where we can configure that in the homeless management information system. And the ask today is that you review this material and would like to consider this for a vote of approval next month. So who was involved in this work over the last 12 months? KCRHA, the Coalition for Ending Gender-Based Violence, the Coalition of Victim Service Providers, our vendor, the Department of Commerce, the HUD Field Office, our COC board, we're informing you today of what we've been working on, the System Performance Committee, and the Coordinated Entry Committee. Next slide, please. Hannah's going to talk about a little bit about the recent presentation we gave to these folks.
Yep, so this is the DV CHAP, so that's Domestic Violence Coordinated Housing Access Point, housing providers. So 8 organizations, 14 programs. You can see here in each column, those are the different programs. So we have those 3 transitional housing programs, Solid Ground Broadview. Consejo actually has 2 transitional housing, Mikasa and Villa Esperanza, and then the interim CDA has transitional housing, 2 rapid rehousing standalone programs, so at LifeWire and YWCA, and then 4 joint component or bridge programs at LifeWire, Salvation Army, New Beginnings, YWCA. You are likely familiar, but that's combining that transitional housing with rapid rehousing. And then we do have 1 permanent supportive housing at ADWAS. ADWAS is unique. They open up their housing resources to the deaf community first, and then any subsequent, if there's openings still, open it up to the domestic violence survivors. Next slide, please. You're on mute, Daniel. Daniel, you're on mute.
Daniel, you're muted.
The host be able to unmute Daniel? Is that an option?
The host can do it. Kelsey or Catherine, you should be able to right click on the name and click unmute.
Okay, Daniel, you are off mute. You can, if you wouldn't mind starting over.
Daniel, we may have lost your audio.
You might be, like sometimes if you have an app open, it might be altering that microphone availability in the booth, I mean, in the Microsoft Teams.
How about now?
There he is. Hey, Daniel.
There we are. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Not exactly sure what the ghost in the machine is on this one. Okay, so we looked at a couple of different domains, quite a few different domains on our analysis of the configuration in the HMIS. So we looked at that safety and security. We looked, could we measure all the activities that are currently being done in the system and move that over? Can we clearly identify and safely give access to the different coalition providers? And can we do that in a way in the HMIS that adheres to the intent of the regulations that HUD gives out for the VAWA funding that they receive, as well as the COC funding? And working with all those groups, we have come to, at the end of that analysis, the recommendation here met our criteria of being feasible, cost-effective, and efficient. And so what we're recommending is that the activities that the coalition is currently doing outside of the HMIS come into the HMIS. We'll do that in a walled-off environment. It will give us greater transparency on the activities there for reporting, and we can do a larger analysis on that work, which we currently don't have access to. Ultimately, this is going to help standardize some of the assessment and referral processes, hopefully reducing some data entry burdens as well. And then it meets our cost and budget that we have for this work. And then it puts us into compliance with being able to produce an annual performance report to HUD for the funds that we received. Next slide, please. Still can't hear. The audio still down? Okay.
I hear you.
And these are the improvements that I stated just earlier here. So I'm going to hand it over to Hannah to kind of wrap up what the changes are going to look like.
Thank you. So this is a lot of boxes, but it's just a map of how our current DVCHAP is working. And then subsequently, I'll highlight the changes that we hope to be making. So this is kind of the flow. You see over here, this on the right side, that HMIS. And so HMIS is not being utilized by most DVCHAP partners. And I should preface that, yes, we have those 8 DVCHAP housing resources. So those 8 agencies, however, many other victim service provider agencies access DVCHAP. They submit those referrals. So it's much larger than those 8 agencies. And with that, so I get notified of an opening in those housing resources, send out notifications to a giant listserv with gender-based violence agencies who then submit assessments, working with survivors to fill those out and submit those assessments. And you can see these 2 paths here. So the DV Hope line, that's our 24/7 our crisis line. They have a slightly different assessment that's submitted through a SharePoint. And then all other agencies have a different, longer assessment that's submitted through the Dropbox. And then both of those are sourced to that housing resource provider. And that's where that prioritization process comes through. in this purple box here, resulting in, kind of a cycle of communication, but then resulting in a survivor being prioritized and placed in that housing resource. And then with that, the housing resource provider and the coalition, so CEGV, that's Coalition Ending Gender-Based Violence, my work, we do a reporting through HMIS or to KCRHA through HMIS as a requirement. Next slide, please. So comparing that to, what we anticipate would be some changes is that we could potentially keep, so that notification process, the inventory of what housing is open, available in the system, and still have that communication piece. But then it would simplify those assessment and referral processes back into the system. And so would be more streamlined. And then it would also reduce the burden. We are working with fillable PDFs right now, which if any changes to those PDFs occur, that means that that advocate would have to resubmit. So there's multiple almost duplicative PDFs for a single survivor wishing to submit for that housing resource because there's no way to edit it once it's submitted. So I'm hoping that with this process, it'll reduce the burden on advocates being able to edit and review more seamlessly, being able to streamline that referral, and then that would reduce the kind of sorting and the resource matching that currently the housing providers are undertaking. So I'm hoping that the system would be able to streamline all of those processes and better complete that service match aspect. And then similarly, same way of prioritization, but then with those other things streamlined, more focus can be on this prioritization. We try to have a 2-week turnaround. And right now that's not always feasible just because of the number of submissions and sifting through them and getting correct contact information. So hoping the system will streamline those and make it simpler in the long run. And then that reporting process would also be going back through those prioritized households would be recorded in the system. And so that would already be kind of taken care of rather than adding that step on the back end. So you can see here that HMIS is a much larger part of this hypothetical process in that pink box. Next slide, please. So the goals, maintaining DV-CHAP guiding principles, which I don't have up here, but I can get those to you. But then specifically for this process is improving the assessment, the release of information handling, service matching, and transparency for all partners involved, including the survivors, making more efficient assessments, service matching, referral processes, prioritization processes, and then that reporting, including the APR, but it would also allow us to create other reports and evaluate our system that at this point we are not really able to do. And so those longer term benefits of that data collection is system evaluation and improvement, which will then potentially allow us to influence policy by having that data to back up our claims, which can impact funding and improve our compliance with HUD's requirements. Next slide, please. Back to you, Daniel.
Hi, everybody. So here are the next steps. I have to go. We'll talk. I can talk later. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. So for the next steps, a little bit of history there. Working with the coalition and others in December, we've circulated this configuration, and everyone is that we've worked with so far, DV Chap, Commerce, our vendor, and KCRHA. We're in favor and support of this configuration. This month, we're socializing this information with you all because at the end of the day, we're going to need your support as we move through and start building the policies and procedures out for this so that we can make sure that we're monitoring and ensuring that the system is working properly. And then once you feel comfortable voting in February, if you do vote to recommend to approve, we would move forward with the build out that hopefully gets completed by April. And then opening up for questions.
I know I saw one hand from Dorsal. I just wanted to hold that it is 3:06, and so we still need to do a break and the work plan discussion as well as the budgeting. So just a heads up, but go ahead, Dorsal.
Yeah, I appreciate the time reminder, Ruby, but if we're going to be called to vote on this in February, we'll need some opportunity to kind of review some of this because I have some concerns. The first question I have is really just a point of clarification, but on the new DV chat model that was being outlined, there was a section in the assessment that specifically called out assessing the disproportional impact of DV and homelessness. And my fear, just as somebody who participated in some of the early listing and sessions way back when the CHAP was first being formed back in the 2010s, is this an assessment to try and weed out chronic homelessness? Because that was a concern some DV providers had, is that they are DV providers, not homeless providers. And there was a need to be able to assess whether someone was more of a quote unquote survivor than someone who was homeless. And so that phrasing just worried me a little bit, if somebody could speak to that.
Sure. So actually that phrasing is consistent with our current program. And I will put in the caveat, I started in July, so I have been handed a lot of this work. So I wasn't there for kind of that wording, but I'm hoping with a kind of re-evaluated and redeveloped assessment, that prioritization process can have more of the focus rather than the currently a lot of the housing providers' time and resources are going through and doing the service matching and kind of sifting through duplicate applications. And so I'm hoping that more emphasis can be put on that prioritization process. I do not anticipate, there is to be in DV CHAP, there is, we are serving that category 4 of HUD homelessness. So survivors of domestic violence, also experiencing homelessness, but I don't view it as that weeding out between chronic homelessness compared to experiencing domestic violence.
And I understand some of your work has to be confidential, but could you share a blank assessment form with the COC board? And then just really kind of quickly tying into that, the other kind of concern, kind of request for more information. So describing the HMIS walled off environment. The concern I have with that is historically, one of the challenges we've had in the data around the return to homelessness metric is that, so when I was the program manager of the confidential DV shelter, everyone I was entering into HMIS at the time was de-identified. We were using HMIS at the time. So I never returned anyone to homelessness because when they checked in at Mary's Place checked them in under their name. And so my program looked stellar, but in reality, because we had walled off even just minimally in HMIS, it was easy for me to look stellar without actually serving the people the way that they should have been served. And so when you say walled off, how walled off is it? And are we going to be able to see if a DV survivor is kicked out of a DV program and shows up in a homeless emergency shelter, that is in fact a return to homelessness? Thanks.
Yeah, so you are correct. Having those de-identified clients and profiles does restrict us to be able to understand and see that return to homelessness. And that is VAWA requirements. Those are federal statutes that we have to follow, protecting survivors' information. So to some extent, that is really out of our hands. What I do hope, and those are also the details that we're going to have to access technical assistance in getting that to both comply with our needs as much as we can, while also maintaining those federal requirements between HUD and VAWA. So yes, that there's a good chance that that walled off process restricts us from seeing complete return to homelessness. What I do think we can do is by agency, if a survivor returns to working with an agency, whether they're the referral or that housing resource, we would potentially be able to see a repeat of that de-identified profile if they have, that identification number. But beyond that, we probably will not be able to see kind of that return to homelessness.
Thank you. Other states have some process, and I'd be happy to share those that kind of
that'd be
circumvent that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Dorsal, this is Daniel. I just want to say thank you for raising those concerns. I'm not entirely sure if I understood the chronic homelessness concern there, that somehow the assessment would filter out. And I think maybe that's a criteria eligibility piece. Would definitely love to follow up to understand that better. And then for the reporting, we will be meeting our reporting obligations by doing it this way. I think what you're thinking, or if I may, what I think you're trying to do here is kind of get to that next step of the analysis and planning around this group. There's trade-offs, certainly. So privacy, security, and protection is going to have a trade-off for what we're able to report on. And that's just another, I think, lens to maybe think about this. And I'll set up something with you, Dorsal, if you want to get other committee members. Maybe we can do a group thing as well. It sounds like there's going to be some more information needed. And I know we're over time and would be happy to entertain another meetup.
If it's okay, I did want to touch on one more thing that I forgot to earlier. I am happy to send out our current assessment form with the caveat that as we do this redevelopment, we are also going to be redesigning and redeveloping that assessment. So this is really just kind of an instigation to do so. I anticipate some carryover, but I'm also hoping that we can improve upon that as well. But I'm happy to send that out.
Okay, is there any other questions surrounding this piece? Being cognizant of the time, I just want to make sure that we get to a 5-minute break for our CART captioner. And so we're going to go ahead and if that's okay, if there's no further questions. And thank you guys so much for coming and talking to us about this. This is a really important issue. I know that it's very important to collect data and also get people services that need to be, under basic, protections. And so thank you for doing the hard work that you guys are doing. But I believe that we should move into the 5-minute break now, and then probably going to go, I don't know, we'll have to see which direction we're going to maneuver for the next portion of the agenda. So we're going to move into that break now. Thank you guys. See you at 3:20.
This is Nora again. I know this is kind of a break for me, so I want to take the opportunity. Daniel, I know that it looks like you're talking with someone else or driving, but I maybe not paying attention.
No, I'm just listening on.
Okay.
The meeting, this meeting time was originally for the 1st, so I just had prior obligations on the state.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to say, it's not me having a hearing problem. I'm hearing the exact same thing everyone else is hearing, and I would please invite you and everyone else to go back and look at the recording along with my captioning that will still remain with the recording, to be able to tell when there are issues, and that I am super awesome at my job. And when I say there's an issue, there really is. And I know that a lot of people, you know, contradicted that and said that there's not an issue, but so I kind of, and I also wanted to tell you, Daniel, once you moved to your car, there was a significant improvement in your audio. Like, you turned crystal clear after that. So I don't know what, you know, change happened. Maybe it was just a network connection thing that made it better, but
possibly, yeah. Well, there's a couple of different inputs happening too. It sounds like it's feeding into the meeting. So no, I don't. Yes, thank you. I didn't mean to be. I came off as dismissive. Not at all. I think if anything,
I think several people were dismissive of it, and I would just invite everybody to go back, and if they want to see where I'm coming from and tell when I'm having issues that correlates to the sound problems.
That you're not crazy. I'm sure that happens. It's just I think in the moment as a presenter to try to do the technology, keep the cadence.
Sure. No, I totally understand. I understand that. Yep.
And then also just having to at some point make a decision to just move forward. That's hard.
And I think a lot of the time there's just, you know, we, as a musician, I understand that auxiliaries can be very specific to the person that has the headphones, you know. Sometimes it seems like they're, you know, maybe you have a different, like a really receptive earphones, you know, to do the work that you're doing. And we're so thankful that you're here.
Yeah, Ruby, you're doing the same thing that everyone else is doing. I again invite everybody to go back and listen to the audio, because I'm genuinely not hearing anything differently than anyone else's.
Yeah.
Oh, I was trying to be supportive. I wasn't saying there was anything. I wasn't trying to dismiss or say there was anything wrong there. I was saying, like, my microphone picks up sounds all the time with a different microphone, and so I was just offering that there may be like that portion too. I'm sorry if that also came off the same.
No, trust it. If I was having problems hearing and this was a regular thing, I do my best to make any changes that I need to make on my end. And
yeah, I was saying you had better equipment than us. That's what I was trying to say. It was like, maybe you have better equipment that's more
no, I'm hearing exactly what everyone else is hearing.
Yeah. Nor one quick solution, which I'm gonna bring to the KCRHA staff, is we have an opportunity to meet a half an hour before, and then we can do an audio visual test and make sure everyone's audio is working, and see if anyone else is like experiencing any thumping or frequency issues. I think that's a quick step we can make to see.
I think
that's what I'm gonna do.
I think we can all go back.
I'm gonna do that.
I think we can all go back and listen to the audio, and we can all make the adjustments that we need to make sure that we're getting good cart captioning. Because I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're asking is that we are able to identify the points of which that you flagged, and so we can see what on our end would need to be changed. Because what I heard also is that when he switched to the car, it was a lot easier for you to hear him. And I
need to say again, I know this is recorded. I see the note in the chat, but I know that you guys are going to kick me off right when the meeting ends. So I feel like I need to say this right now, that I wasn't the one to first bring up the issue with the audio. I brought it up again. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Everybody, I would really appreciate everybody going back and listening to the audio from Zoom.
I want to confirm, like, the reason I spoke up is because I was not reading just the text. I also had an audio issue. So, like, there was some intermittent issues. So I do want to acknowledge that. And maybe that's something we can work with KCRHA staff too, that if it's a presentation by KCRHA staff, I'd really like to talk to them about ensuring like all of the other COC board members, we're in closed spaces or in spaces where we're able to participate fully in the meeting. But that'll be something I think we can talk about at the co-chairs meetings when I get back, Ruby.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's
yeah.
not just me that needs the information. I mean, honestly, I'm just going to get whatever I can get. So for me, bringing it up and wanting to make something better, everybody, it's not for just my benefit. But okay, I see this as kind of a fruitless issue, so I will be quiet.
I just want to.
This is Jaja. I just want to say, Nora, that I am glad you brought it up. I know you're doing closed captioning. I know Christina needs that. So I don't think you were bringing it up for you. I think you were bringing it up so you could do your work. And I was just trying to isolate the situation by saying I could hear it, but I'm on a phone. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
And I think we can all go watch the video to help us figure out what on our ends we can do, like to make sure that we're more in a better place to move forward on this, because we really do appreciate your collaboration with us on this. And I think everybody was just trying and figure out the solution in real time. So I appreciate everyone. We're going to be coming back from a break soon for a little bit. And I just want to acknowledge that I heard that you wanted us to listen to the meeting, and I guarantee you I commit to listening to the meeting and identifying where so we can know to do better in the future. And thank you for raising that. And everybody that confirmed that there was audio issues. Thank you. So it is also 3:23, and in respect of the staff that came to give a presentation, Kelsey, I want to check in with you on the COC work plan presentation, and if we could maybe switch the two on the agenda, or how you feel about that. Yeah, I'm going to hand the floor over to you for a sec.
I am happy to do that and have our finance team present first. Per Austin, we do need a motion for that, but I am happy to do that given our finance team is here.
We can do it after.
Yeah.
This is Jaja. I so move that we switch the two items on our agenda so that the finance team goes first and then the COC board can present afterwards.
Do I hear any seconds?
Second, but I'm worried we might need to do roll call to make sure everyone's back.
Thanks, Doris.
That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Can we have everybody come off camera or come on camera, excuse me, to confirm that you're here?
This is Patricia. I'm here.
Okay, Tamara Bauman,
Here.
Jaja Floyd, Bella Irons, Amaya Lenore,
Here.
Elizabeth Mopin, Dorsal Plants,
I'm back.
Ruby Romero,
Present.
Martha Sasarosi,
Here.
Christina Sawicki,
Christina's here.
thank you, Victor Liu,
Here?
Amy Thomas, TT White.
Awesome. And Chair, for the current motion on the table, you can do a no objection if you'd like.
Okay. So we did get a motion by Jaja and the second was by Dorsal. Thank you, Dorsal. And we're going to go ahead, and if there's no objection to switching the agenda items for the finance team to go right now at their scheduled time or 5 minutes after, and then for the COC work plan to be the following discussion. Any objections? Not hearing any. We can move on to, thank you guys so much for that. Also, we've got Tiffany and I believe is it James as well here to give the presentation on the budget. And thank you for your time. Thanks for coming today.
Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm James Rouse. I am the Chief Financial Officer here at KCRHA. I'm actually going to let Tiffany introduce herself, and she's going to do most of the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tiffany Brooks. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Deputy CFO here at the KCRHA. Before we get started, I wanted to share my gratitude and appreciation for you guys adding us to your agenda at the last minute and for making the modification so that we can present the budget to you guys. We really do appreciate your flexibility and willingness to allow us to present the budget to you today. I am going to share my screen, so please let me know if you cannot see it. I get a little paranoid sometimes to make sure I'm not sharing the wrong thing, so let me know when you can see a presentation.
Yes, Tiffany, that's the 25 annual budget.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go over our budget presentation that we shared with our governing board in December because we wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of the budget that we have as an agency overall, as well as our board members have asked and requested that we ensure that we're including you in the presentations, which we are more than happy to do, which is why we're very grateful and appreciative for you guys making the accommodations for us to be here today. We will start off with giving you guys an overview of the key components of the KCRHA's budget. We will then go into our 2025 budget and break it down in a couple of different ways, as well as provide you with a brief overview of the City of Seattle participatory budget hats that are anticipated to transition to the KCRHA later this year. The KCRHA's budget is made up of 3 components. The main component that we have is our base funding. Most people know of these funds as the ongoing dollars that agencies receive year over year for their contracted services that they provide for the funds that we administer here at the agency. Most of these funds, or projects rather, were transitioned to the KCRHA from our funders, City of Seattle and King County, and our existing projects that were previously underway prior to the KCRHA being stood up. The next part of our budget is, most people know it as our one-time funds, and for a while they were mostly consistent of COVID funds during the COVID era, and they also consist of one-time funding that we receive to stand up new projects or any funds that we receive from City of Seattle, King County, or any of our other funders to stand up new projects on their behalf or within the community so that we can address different needs that have been identified amongst the community. We also have our third part of our budget, which is our incremental budget changes. These are typically made by the executive or mayor's office, as well as their prospective councils for different initiatives that we have to implement throughout the year with the new funding that come over to us. Excuse me. This year, the KCRHA is receiving a 4.4% inflationary increase for our contracts that receive City of Seattle and King County funding. And so for this slide, we're letting you see a breakdown of our funding by percentages so that you can see where the most and majority of our money is. Where you can see that most of our budget is in our base funding for existing contracts. 3% of that, our budget is in our inflationary increases. We also have an 8% admin percentage of our overall budget. And then we have 9% of one-time funds, which we will go into the details a little bit later on. The KCRHA's 2025 budget is going to be $206 million. And this slide is breaking down our budget by our program types and by our funders for each of those program types. For the city of Seattle, we are receiving approximately $109 million, King County, $52 million, North King County, roughly $402,000, from HUD Continuum of Care, $23 million, and from the Department of Commerce, roughly $20 million. I will make a highlight that for the Department of Commerce and our HUD funding, you will not see the full funds that we do receive as a continuum of care within our budget, because it's only identifying funds that the KCRHA receives directly to administer and to contract with service providers. This slide is just going over our funding for the $206 million by each of our funders so that you can see who our major funders are and what percentage of our budget is funded by that particular funder. As we get into our budget by our programs, we're showing that, of course, with the KCRHA administering funds to address homelessness, that most of our funding is funding enhanced shelter and shelter programs. The next level will be for permanent supportive housing, supportive services. We do just want to highlight that we're providing the supportive services for PSH projects. And so we also have that in our portfolio. And then the third largest is our rapid rehousing for 11.8%. As mentioned earlier in the components of our budget, our incremental changes that we have within our budget for 2025 is broken down here by the city of Seattle and King County. At the very top, you'll notice that we do have a reduction of approximately $85,000. This is due to several contracts transitioning back to the city of Seattle for prevention services and outreach services. And then we also have the removal of one-time funding that is going away for 2025. And then underneath that, you'll see all of the budget increases that we will have for 2025. For the $168,000, it's for a transitional housing program where they have some increased costs that they're anticipating to have for 2025. We also have some funding in here for tiny house villages to ensure that we maintain level services and supports for tiny house villages within the community. We also have $2.2 million that is transitioning from one-time funding into general funds to support a shelter program to ensure they have level funding year over year. And we are also adding back in our CDBG funds for $3.1 million. This is going to existing programs that we already have under contract with the KCRHA. We just had a different process for requesting those dollars for 2025. And so this is the formality of showing those dollars coming back to the KCRHA. In addition to that, we do have contract inflationary increase that we're receiving from the city of Seattle. As mentioned earlier, it's 4.4% for 2025. And for 2026, I believe it's approximately 3%. We have funding in here as well for RV resident transition program. That also includes storage services for RV residents. And then we have $2.2 million for an enhanced shelter that will be coming online this year. In addition to that, to close out the city of Seattle's budget increases that we're receiving in 2025 are the stand-up of 2 new non-congregate shelters. This funding does include the capital cost for the standing up of those projects, as well as 6 months worth of operations for those contracts once they're contracted. And then in 2026, it will provide the ongoing operation costs that will be associated with those projects. For King County, we do have some incremental budget changes, but these are using existing funds within King County. We do have $7.6 million in prevention of closure of programs. And for this section, it is including some contracts that were previously funded by the city of Seattle using one-time COVID dollars. for those projects have transitioned over to King County to help fund those one-time dollars to ensure that these projects are receiving ongoing funding for those one-time dollars that went away. It is also accounting for ARPA projects that currently are receiving ARPA dollars to ensure that they are funded for 2025 as well. We are very appreciative to King County as well for adding on the inflationary increase. They're matching the city of Seattle's 4.4% for inflationary increase for providers who are receiving King County funds. The KCRHA's operating and admin budget is $16.2 million this year, and this is simply breaking it down by our different departments and the overhead costs that we have here at the KCRHA. And our overall admin budget is approximately 8% of our overall KCRHA budget, which is the $206 million.
What is AP? I'm sorry, what is APRA? I'm sorry.
APRA is ARPA. It is the American Rescue Act. People also know it as CLIFR, coronavirus funds. And those are the one-time dollars that we receive from King County or the city of Seattle, where they received it from the Department of Treasury.
Thank you for that clarification. Sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely. It's not a problem at all. This slide is simply repeating our earlier slide, giving you a high-level overview of our 2025 budget by program type and our funders. And then we have a slide that is identifying the City of Seattle participatory budget adds, where these dollars are not currently included in our budget that was just presented to you, but they are, some of them are anticipated to be transitioned over to the KCRHA later this year. And as we receive more information from the City of Seattle, then we will update our boards of that information as we update our budget throughout the year. Any questions?
I noticed.
There's one question. There's one question in the chat from Victor. What is the impact to KCRHA with a one-time reduction back to the city of Seattle? And does KCRHA have a federal indirect cost?
We do not have a federally indirect cost rate. That is something that we would look into applying for at a later date. And for the impact of the contracts that are transitioning to the city of Seattle, it is an impact on a level of service that can be provided for a full, well-rounded approach for addressing homelessness, but I would actually direct that response to our programs team because they're more knowledgeable about the impact of the prevention and outreach dollars going back to the city of Seattle. And we can definitely get that response provided to you officially, because I would really hate to butcher the true nature and impact of those dollars going back based on for programmatic response. And you had another question, or were those the two questions that you had? And I can't see the chat, so I apologize ahead of time.
It sounds like those answered the responses. Thank you. Or question.
Absolutely. Elizabeth?
I wondered, in there's funding for 3 years for, I believe it was a youth shelter. Do you expect youth need for shelter to go away in 3 years?
Do you recall which slide you're referring to?
I believe it was your last one.
This one? I would have to get more information on this and circle back to you. These dollars have not transitioned to the KCRHA from City of Seattle just yet, and we would need to get more guidance on the purpose and exactly how these funds are intended to be used, as well as the duration and timeline that was anticipated within the proposal that was submitted to the City of Seattle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's also one question in the chat asking about the URL for the public posting of the budget. And I think, is that at the governing board, or could we have these sent out to us as well? But what is the URL for that?
For this presentation, it is on our website in two places. It is under the meeting materials for this meeting, as well as the meeting materials for the December governing board meeting.
Thank you for that. Is there any other questions? I see two hands, Dorsal and Martha. Sorry, I didn't see who popped up first. I apologize.
You want to go first, Martha, since I already asked one question?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Yeah, this is Martha Sassarsi. I have a question about the framing of base budget. And so the base budget to KCRHA can generally assume to continue from year to year. And I see, the language was that the base budget funds are already committed to existing contracts with providers. KCRHA will be procuring dollars that pass through King County to KCRHA. So ongoing, it's not necessarily, those funds aren't committed to existing contracts like ongoing. Correct?
That is correct when we do get into that phase of the KCRHA. However, we're not at that phase just yet. So as of right now, those funds are going towards existing contracts.
I think, yeah, that's like a helpful distinction that this is specifically for 2025, but there's a distinction there that ongoing funds aren't necessarily committed to existing contracts and providers. Yeah, beyond 2025.
I would say to an extent, Martha, because if they do go through a procurement process, then they will still then be committed to those projects for an extended period of time, which will still make them going toward existing projects for that second year. So it's like a little phasing gap that you would potentially have in there where they're not going to an existing program, but following that process, then it will be going to an existing program going forward.
Sorry, that means like as a transition, because I'm not saying that the system would be procured and all of a sudden all the currently funded projects would not be. That's not what I'm trying to get at, but just the kind of presumption of ongoing. It's the same awards, same fund sources going to the same projects, whereas we may have a new provider or a new program, and there would be an opportunity for them to apply for funding from this mix of the base budget in future years.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I think I saw in the, oh, go ahead, go Dorsal.
Yeah, just quickly following up on the URL question. Do you I'm a very visual person. Is there a interactive, like a Tableau or a dashboard on the KCRHA website or somewhere that we can access to kind of deeper dive into this? And if not, I know you all are super busy, but I'd like to maybe plug as you start doing some of your dashboard work, maybe an interactive budget dashboard would be great if you don't have it.
That is an excellent suggestion. We do not have an interactive dashboard presently, but we can forward this presentation to you if it's easier than to pull it from our website. But in the meantime, this is the documentation that we have available. But we will definitely look into the interactive visual dashboard. That's a very, very good idea.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. Is there any other questions, feedback? Because I do want to make sure that we are holding space for the 2025 work plan discussion. And we can also maybe connect afterwards, Tiffany, to kind of get further questions answered if there are any. And then also, thank you guys so much for coming today and giving this presentation. This really high level discussion has been really, you definitely have to hear it twice. I think so. That's really good to be able to absorb it this time and really start to think about where we can collaborate on these future years. So thank you guys for coming out today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Okay, and so we've got 15 minutes left. I just want to hold space for the work plan discussion that Kelsey so graciously swapped in our agenda for, well, Kelsey was okay with us swapping the agenda. I always want to make sure that we're doing everything in community. So, anyway, long story short, Kelsey, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Kelsey Beckmeyer, she, her pronouns. I am a manager with our Continuum of Care work at KCRHA, and we'll be presenting a high-level overview of 2025 work plan. Really, this is the what. We will be developing the how in a couple different ways. One is through feedback during the January 29th COC convening. We have time where we will dig into some of the how there. We will also be opening up space for input and comment via an online survey after the convening or before. I don't remember my timing. It might be after today, and I'm opening up until the convening. And then we will also have some time during a board retreat to be looking at all of the feedback and input that we get to really build out the goals for 2025. So I just want to preface it, all of that there. And let me pull up my presentation. Oops, that's not what I want. I do not want that. This is what I want. All right, are you all seeing my screen?
Or I am personally.
All right. So the first area around developing our work plan will be focusing on, number one, what are some HUD requirements? And these are determined from the collaborative application. This is what we submit to HUD during the NOFO on a biannual process now, thankfully. And these are the topics and areas that HUD asks about that we need to speak to in the collaborative application. So throughout the next year, we want to focus on our COC membership development, including board member election and board member development, really enhancing who is a part of our membership, enhancing convenings, enhancing just opportunities to engage with COC membership and getting input, feedback, and collaboration. A part of that is the COC convenings. We are aiming to have at least 3 convenings this year, a combination of in-person and virtual ones. This is a way to bolster membership, etc., and meet some of our other HUD requirements. We then want to focus on housing first compliance and evaluation. We want to look at what exists and how do we want to make improvements. This will be done in a couple different areas. One is through our COC interim policies and procedures, which will be a body of work that the cross-cutting policy work group is looking at throughout 2025, as well as looking at current processes that KCRHA has to do housing first evaluation for our contracted providers. We then want to look at system partnership coordination, and this is very broad, but we want to develop partnerships with certain sectors that, one, HUD wants to see really strong relationships with within our COC, and kind of beyond just what HUD is presenting, what do we locally want to look at in terms of partnerships? Want to call out one in particular that I know both the co-chairs have spoken about is developing a strong relationship with the governing board, as well as looking at relationships with other elected officials on a local and state level. Other partners that we want to kind of bolster relationships with include workforce development, our public housing authorities, as well as public health. So those are just a few systems that we want to be able to ensure we have really good ongoing back and forth relationship with. We want to really ensure that we are getting consistent and ongoing public input from our COC membership, from people with lived and living experience of homelessness, to really ensure that decisions and changes and improvements or things that we're moving forward with the status quo of what may exist already are really anchored in public input and feedback to allow us to synthesize that and also clearly share how we are taking public input and making changes. So not that we are just gathering it, but ensuring that we're demonstrating how we are using it. We also want to focus on some system evaluation, including an evaluation of our coordinated entry system, as well as understanding and bolstering how we are doing a racial equity analysis of our system. And finally, ensuring that we are doing provider and staff trainings. There are specific trainings that HUD wants to see offered on an annual basis. So collaborating and making sure that those are occurring within our continuum. Some of the projects that go beyond or in parallel with HUD requirements, these are some of the specific projects that have been earmarked for us to look at in 2025. Those include written standard review. So as Victor spoke to earlier today, there will be a charter review this year. So standing up the charter review work group. The cross-cutting policy work group will be focusing on the COC interim policies and procedures. There has been a call from HUD to get input on 2027 HMIS data standards. So we want to take some time to get input from the community to be able to send that to HUD. That will be due at the end of May. So we'll be working on getting some things started in the next probably month or two. The YAB is wanting to focus on youth homelessness demonstration project evaluations. When we do the renewals for these projects during the NOFO, HUD always wants to know how we are involving our youth action board. So we are going to kind of work closely with the YAB of identifying, this is the end goal we have. What are the pieces we want to step forward so that the YAB as a body feels confident in either, signing off or supporting youth homelessness demonstration projects. So we'll be working with them to make those connections and just facilitate their involvement with those providers. And then, of course, continuing to build that relationship between the COC and the KCRHA governing board and just supporting and bolstering that. We've got a little peek at some of the work groups that we are hoping to stand up throughout 2025. This will not all be at once. Some will phase in and some will phase out. This is part of what we will be looking at in terms of developing a more detailed calendar. But we aim to have a number of work groups this year and increasing the number of work groups so that we can bolster community engagement. There, of course, is the cross-cutting policy work group that is currently stood up. We will be voting on standing up the COC charter review work group in February. A few others that we will be bringing forth and collaborating with the board on sponsors for those will be around the COC convenings and planning. One that we hope to have around data standards, engagement, and metric development. An ad hoc selection committee for the board election, a NOFO committee, a point in time or pit count preparation and planning. There will be an unsheltered pit count in 2026. So we want to have a work group to help with planning and preparation for that for 2026. And then membership development. So these are all ways that we are hoping to just bolster engagement with COC members and other community members to inform some of the work that we do in 2025. That is what I got for you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see questions and engage with you all.
Yeah. Is there any questions? Elizabeth, go ahead.
What are your hopes for membership development, and do you have an approach in mind?
I am going to lean that to Catherine, because Catherine is one who will be kind of supporting some of the membership development.
So I think that one of the things that we just recently put together is a list of organizations, partners that are missing in our current COC makeup. So we'll be looking at those individuals and putting together a plan for outreach and membership development.
And again, some of the how is what we want to get some input on from both the COC convening. And then there is a poll out to all of the board members for a board retreat to also do some planning sessions.
Just off the top of your head, is there a need for more outreach in particular parts of the county? Are there some areas that are less represented where we should be focusing?
Yep, so we want to look at both geographic. So we want to coordinate with our planning group around geographic focus for membership development, as well as specific the word is eluding me, but there are specific categories that HUD also looks at sectors. Oh, sectors, that's the word. To see how we have a really dynamic membership. So we have done a preliminary review of what sectors we're really missing strong engagement with. I can't recall things off the top of my head at this moment, but we will definitely share that, and I can ensure that we present that at the COC convening.
Thank you.
Dorsal, I see your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, just one quick statement of support. One of the things I hope that everyone saw with the work groups is that there's quite a bit of them, and so our hope really is that we'll be able to spread some of the responsibility. One of the awesome things about the one-on-ones that Ruby and I got to do, you all are leaders, and so we need your all expertise on these work groups, and so I just want to call that out. And then as far as question goes for you, Kelsey, I think one of the things that would be great maybe at the retreat as part of this process is if we could really start to look at, you know, what are some of KCRHA's internal policies supporting the COC board, and are they still functioning in a way that works for us, that supports us, and are there things that we can do potentially to refine them, things like the stipend and potentially some of the other policies. Thank you.
That's great. Well, we will plan to do a little bit of like a topic survey for everyone ahead of the retreat, so that there are some clear topics for us to be looking at. Any other questions? Again, this is very high. We'll get into more detail at the COC convening. And just looking forward to digging into 2025.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kelsey. This has been fun to kind of maneuver this with everyone that we've already worked with, and looking forward to kind of getting new sets of eyes on everything and really starting to figure out what the continuum as a whole really wants to be moving in the direction of, and just trying to get everyone on the same page. And because I think that, you know, having a little bit, being on the same page is helpful, right? We can all agree that that's a helpful thing. So I'm really looking forward to doing the work in the next year. Is there any other board members that want to speak to something they want to do? We also have the, you know, community announcement portion as well, but just kind of holding space for this work plan and what we look forward to in the coming year. Feel free to come off mute. Okay. We are going to probably figure out exactly what that's going to look like by what we're thinking. We're going to vote on this for the February, or were we voting on this in March?
I think probably presenting it, so we'll be we'll probably work on the development in February. So any final kind of plan wouldn't be presented until March. And I will just caveat that with any good plan, they tend to change. This will be a projected plan, knowing that all sorts of things shift timelines and may move things around. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm curious about that statement because traditionally organizational work plans tend not to change throughout the year. And we're running out of time, but yeah, I'm curious about that statement a lot.
Yes, I'm just thinking around timelines. So the what may not change and the how may not change. It's the when that can sometimes need to shift. Just thinking around like NOFO planning and all of those pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we had a good rough estimate of when we should be kind of really sinking our teeth into thinking about passing it.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that gonna, not having a work plan right now in effect, do we have one in effect still currently? Or is that gonna be an issue to have going into January, February without one? Just
I
curious.
would defer to Austin.
I'll have to do some offline research on that one.
Yeah. And we'll see around the need to vote on a work plan because it's not necessarily a
board
function. It's a
organizational.
It's bigger than just the board. It's full COC work plan, and we'll be developing kind of what the board is focusing on. So it may be that it's a smaller bit of the overall scope. If
Ruby,
that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ruby, we'll have an answer for you on Monday on that, just to make sure that we have everything there.
Perfect, yeah. Sounds like there's good discussion to be had there, yeah. Okay, I know Dorsal had community update for sure. Is there?
We're over time, Ruby. I'll send them by email.
Oh, is it 4:03? Oh, my apologies. I see that now. Oh, we are over time. I gotta say that you know, we had the December 21st Memorial Day for people experiencing homelessness that you know, died outside, and I just want to hold space for that. I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting, but I got to make sure that I say, you know, we need to think about the past year and how things have really been going, and just holding space for all the lives that have been lost this past 2024. So thank you guys for being here today. You know, we meet to do the good work and try and minimize that harm that's being done to the community. So thank you so much for being here today. Our next meeting is going to be February 4th, I believe.
February 5th.
The 5th, February 5th from 2 to 4 p.m. And we look forward to seeing you at the convening on the 29th. So the meeting is adjourned. Thanks.